What's what everybody wants? You go on a nice spa weekend and you come back 1.5 kilos lighter than before you left, and everyone's happy. Unless you're George Russell, in which case you've had a terrible spa weekend. Dan Jads, how are you doing? My name's Alex. That's Dan. This is the Lap Down podcast. We're going to talk about F1 for the next half an hour or so. And Dan, how have you been?
Warm.
Yes.
That would be the summary. It's the 1 week of the year that we get in the UK where it is kind of warm. And then everybody just struggles and panics a little bit because it is quite hot.
And everybody mentions that it's warm.
It is warm, yeah. And even warmer after you've had a particularly spicy buffalo chicken dinner, which you've just had. And you've done quite well at the moment not to start sweating on camera.
That's why there was the brief delay, was to get rid of the sweat.
It's on its way. It's on its way. It's on its way. But no, I'm all right. It was another great race. And it feels like we've said that pretty much every week since at least Miami, I think. And I can't really remember what happened before Miami. And that's just fantastic. We've said for ages that actually we could be on for one of the best Formula One seasons going. And particularly where nobody seems to be kind of developing something new. But as you said last week or the week before, you can't suddenly just go, oh yeah, don't worry lads, we're 5 seconds quicker now. Like there will become a point. And it is starting to feel like, and unless like somebody does something horrendously wrong over the winter, it's starting to feel like it's a bit of a shame that there's going to be a regs change in 2026.
Yeah, which I think, this is going to be my second reg change. We're getting ahead of ourselves. There's another year still. But it's my understanding that basically this is the cycle of F1 that everyone gets 4 years into the regs and goes, oh, do we really have to have a regs change? And then, we have a regs change and it all resets again. But, I mean, it's a pretty fundamental part of the sport, isn't it, the regs change? Otherwise, it wouldn't be a design a car sport anymore, which people, I think, forget a little bit that first and foremost, it's kind of a design a car sport. And then there's the second bit of, and now go and race that car as good as you can.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Next year could be incredible.
There's a reason that you don't go down to like Cinch if they're still a company and go, ooh, I was thinking about getting that Fiesta, but they've actually got a 2023 Formula One car out there because they just had another couple that came off the shelf.
Yeah. It's not stock of them. It's like a Kia Sportage, hard to get. It's hard to get.
Yeah, you don't see many of them cruising up and down the M1.
No, tricky, back-ordered. Long way back-ordered. But, I mean, I said to you before we started there that as a race, it didn't necessarily have a huge highlights package of moments, but it was just a very good 90 minutes of watching cars go in a sort of a squiggly circle, and it was a good example, I think, of why I like F1 and what I didn't understand about F1 before that I now do, that it's like Test cricket. There's a lot that goes on before the result that is almost more important than the result. And you can have the result is almost separate from how you got to that result. And I think this was a really good example of that you didn't know who was going to win right up until the end because there was always a risk as George ran those tyres further and further. You fly up Eau Rouge and Oradion with a tyre that's on its last legs. There's a great chance it just pops. Like they didn't really discuss that on the broadcast anywhere, so it may well be that he was like 15 laps, 20 laps away again from that level of concern. But he's run a tyre a long way there, and that can produce unexpected things. It could suddenly lock up and he could go off the chicane and all of a sudden Hamilton's winning and then Hamilton could get reeled in. So just yay.
It was tense, wasn't it? The whole 90 minutes was tense. And firstly, you just mentioned Eau Rouge and Radion. How good is it again to have a Formula One circuit with actual corner names that mean things to people?
And a corner name of actually no name, which is the best part of it.
It does actually have a name.
Does it have a name? Because they keep calling it the corner with no name.
No, so I think that's what it's colloquially known as no name. But I believe it is actually called Jackie Ickx. The corner is called Jackie Ickx, who was a Formula One driver, Le Mans winner from like the 70s, 80s. So a little bit before your time. But so, yeah, there's no name. There's Sandavot. There's Piff Paff. There's, as you said, Eau Rouge, Radion, the Kemmel Straight, rather than go, here goes Martin Brundle, we're going to join you down at turn 5.
Yeah.
No one cares, mate. Give me some more soulless shit and kind of force it down my throat. But it's nice. It's great. It's good. The race was tense. As you said, it felt like anybody really of that top 7 could win at any point. It was great the fact there were teams on like kind of different strategies. They were offsetting one another slightly, but kind of one went slightly longer, one went slightly shorter. And then there was a bit, there's going to be an overlap here. And we're going to go for an overcut. And even as you said, right to that last minute, not only did we get kind of 3 laps of, crap, Lewis is coming and George is going to have to like drive the wheels off this thing to stay thick. Lewis, I think, probably had opportunities, but just cocked up the entry into Sandoval, the exit.
And also, I guess a little bit of they'd been told like, let's not play silly buggers here. Like, sure. I dare say if that was Oscar in front or Verstappen in front or whatever, then it might have been a slightly different story. I think he was maybe giving it the wide eyes a little bit,
possibly. And if McLaren hadn't had a kick Sauber F1 stake team pit stop with Oscar Piastri.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we nearly had an Australian making that a nice little 3-way across the start-finish line anyway, but if that hadn't have had a sticky left nut or whatever it was...
Well, he tried to run over his jackman.
Yeah, that didn't help, did it? But
that's...
You'd have had...
That's what cost you a second.
You'd have had a 3-way.
Yeah. And we very nearly did anyway.
Different kind of Spa when you go and have somewhere to 3-ways.
Very much so. Very much so. I'm going to make a statement about, which is something that I touched on, might have been in one of our sprint weekends or something like that. But the teams essentially didn't get 3 FP sessions this weekend because the conditions didn't give them a huge amount of information.
Yep.
And that's why we had George Russell completing it on a 1-stop where everyone was initially so certain that it was a 2-stopper, and then they realized, actually, the hard tire's killing it. This is great. We can probably get there on a 1-stop. And the only reason that they didn't know how that hard tire was going to perform is because we lost all of one of the FP sessions, certainly maybe even 2 of them, into running, or at the very least, compromised slicks running. That, for me, and my uneducated opinion, it's another tick in the box of, don't let them absolutely calibrate everything. Let them have a 90-minute FP session on a Friday. It's all they need. Give them a little bit more time on a Friday. 1 session, so that if you put it in the wall, that's your problem. Shouldn't have put it in the wall. And that's your time, lads. It's up to you. Do you want to work on setup? Do you want to work on tyres? Do you want to work on learning the track? You got 90 minutes. Off you pop. Then we'll see you in a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Why not?
Stefano?
I mean, what I will say is the closest that kind of these 4 teams at the top of the charts have run for absolutely ages, or for at least as long as I can remember, to genuinely have a chance going into a weekend and going, oh my word, there could be 7 different race winners here. That I think is quite incredible. And I suppose it's quite difficult with Spa because although we didn't have it, we don't actually know how much of an impact that may or may not have had because those cars and drivers are so evenly matched right now. We haven't got a driver that's just going to piss off into the horizon and never see them again. Could it have been, and complete kind of hypothetically, but could it have been an even closer race had they had the ability to have worked those things out? Could the Red Bulls have kind of sorted a little bit extra about their setup there to drag themselves a little bit closer? And actually, instead of the 3 cars that came across the line in that kind of final shot, we had 6. We don't know. But I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. All I would say is I just don't necessarily want a sprint race every weekend.
Oh, no, you don't need to put a sprint in there. I was quite happy with my 90-minute FP on a Friday sans sprint, and let's just make Saturday about quali and find another way to put a juniors race in there or something to make everyone race their third driver in the morning. Not in their car. They can have a different car, but make everyone race their third driver. Just to box off the last thing about tyres, because we've been tyre chat heavy so far. What I think summed it up brilliantly about what made this weekend so great from strategy is that Danny Rick, had a good weekend. Well done, Daniel. He started on the softs that nobody else did. He was the lone softman on that grid in P12, I think, maybe P13. Like, he wasn't in a P19, let's stick the softs on Hail Mary territory. It was good spot. Let's see if we can find a point of difference. Let's bank on a safety car early, which historically, and a few people were like, oh, that was dumb of them. It's like, well, no, because I think something like 5 of the last 7 Belgian Grand Prix, there's been a safety car, and that safety car's come in the first couple of laps.
Well, when you put a 180 degree right hand bend 50 yards from the start,
followed by a squiggly bibbly up a 90-story building.
Yeah, there's opportunity.
So you can see what VCarb are thinking there. They're going, okay, well, we think it's going to be a 2-stop, but actually, you know what? The hard tyre, I think, it might not be terrible. If we can get our other tyre out of the way for a lap, have it on softs, maybe he makes up a position or two off the line, and then after that, we'll just run it as a 1-stop hard, and we're flying. And fair play to them for trying. And the fact that he still finished P10, P11 on the road, P10 overall, good. Just good all round. Good all round.
And I think that's another nod to just how close the grid is at the moment, to the fact that they genuinely think starting, as you said, P12, P13, that they think, well, actually, if we go a little bit funky here and we get lucky, we could be quick enough to really kind of put the cat amongst the pigeons here. Which
would be a P7, a P8.
Exactly. Which would have been great. I think I read somewhere and said that it was the closest finish in a Formula One race for about 11 years. With those three cars coming across the line pretty much together. Was it 0.7 of a second, I think, that separated the three of them?
Very, very
within
DRS of each other.
Had George Russell obviously not been disqualified, which I suspect is probably what we're about to talk about next, that would have been everybody that finished first through 11th on that grid had won a Grand Prix as well, which is another fun little stat to kind of throw in there, isn't it? But yeah, George. Can we talk about George?
Why?
Well, the thing is, that is an absolute masterstroke by George to kind of come across the radio. And the way that radio message started, and I know you had nightmares of it the week before with Lando, and it went boop, boop, boop. Actually, the fact that this time it went boop, 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 and it was George that went, actually, could we think about just running these tyres to the end? The way he phrased that was in a case of, this is my idea. My bollocks are like space hoppers right now, and I'm taking this Merc to the end. And then to actually do it, and get it there, and then have enough kind of pace to defend from his teammate and potentially Oscar as well at the end of the race to win it is fucking incredible. It's huge. It's a massive result for him because he's one of the guys that's copped a load of flack lately where people have gone, well, we just don't think he's cutthroat enough to actually kind of be a world champion. Don't know whether he makes enough tough decisions. Can he win enough races? And he's just proven there at Spa. Yes, he got disqualified. Do I think he deserved to be disqualified or not? I'm not sure. Maybe that 90 minutes of not running the tyres for longer and things like that, you didn't know what the degradation would look like because they reckon that actually part of the reason why it was underweight was because actually the tyres had run down off the rubber and then therefore the car had run lower and the skid blocks underneath it then obviously got worn and all this other good stuff. So maybe we're circling all the way back there. But that to me has proven the fact that George Russell can win races and can be a World Drivers' Title champion thing as well.
Yep. No, I think it's always nice when you see the driver be the one that instigate. As much as we have to give credit to the boffins in, back at base with their wall of screens and whatever and their AI algorithms and all that wank.
Lots of Amazon.
You've got to give... It's so nice to see a bloke that's driving a car that thinks, I feel good in this car and I feel quick. And actually, these tyres feel like they're okay. And I'm the only one in the world that knows that. So let's do it. What I will say, and far be it from me to want to start a podcast war down Jads. And to be honest with you, I can't remember the name of the podcast. So it's not really starting a podcast war anyway. But, this is a dangerous statement.
Oh, no.
Fuck me, Team 44. Team LH44 don't half piss me off sometimes, Dan. because
oh no,
I saw.
Shit! Well, if we get cut off in the next 5 minutes, there's going to be pitchforks outside the house.
And also, I don't think Taylor Swift is that. No.
Oh my! Yeah, double down on it, mate. Go hard.
Virat Kohli. No, but I saw a clip from a podcast, and I can't remember the podcast. I don't have enough care for it. That they tried
just because we get 16 listeners a week, and you're here going, I can't be asked to listen to this one.
No, but you understand why in a second. Their whole thing, they went on this rant about why it was unfair to Lewis Hamilton that Mercedes let George Russell do that to Lewis Hamilton.
Oh my word!
And I'm watching this clip, going, this bloke is deluded. It's it's a decision by that driver. I would like to do this, and the team has gone, we'll back you. Yeah, we don't see anything that says that this is the worst idea you've ever had. And this argument from this guy was that was Mercedes throwing Hamilton under the bus, and that they should have instantly switched Hamilton onto the same thing, or not let George do it because they committed Hamilton to a 2-stop. And I'm sat there thinking, this bloke's absolutely sniffing something. But then I go into the Twitter comments on this, and everyone's like, that's such a great point. You've nailed it again. No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. It's a terrible take. Stop.
No.
Not everything is about LH44. He drove a good race. He very much deserved to win at Silverstone. I've got no issue with that. Not everything needs to be about Lewis being wronged. So that's me off my high horse. Just had to get that out. But yeah, I just saw that and I just thought that's the opposite of my read. And I think the opposite of the non, I'm going to use the C word, the non-culty with an L, the non-culty fan bases. I just cannot believe someone looked at that call from George and the team and the way he executed it and gone, nah, that's not on. Like, come on.
I think sometimes I do wonder with a lot of the stuff that I put out online as to whether I just go, am I just a bit too level with some of this stuff? And I think that's one of those things, because that clip probably generated thousands of views, didn't it? And as you said, completely polarized opinion, and kind of generated a lot of interest from one half of a party and not much from the other. But those people that didn't like it would have commented heaps on it and kind of gone, you're useless. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we do need to be slightly more radical when it comes to these kind of things. And I do feel like you could be the man for it. Because I feel
think
like
Verstappen's washed.
Well, no, but we both think that anyway. But I do think that you're on kind of you're at the top of a bit of a, like you would have played Fall Guys, wouldn't you? Because you stream.
I've played Fall Guys.
So you're on kind of the precipice right now, and you're on kind of an Oscar Piastri kind of shit. I'm nearly sliding down this Oscar Piastri slope, and I feel like you could be the guy to start that kind of Oscar Piastri. I don't even know what the right word for it is. Cult, I suppose. Fandom, euphoria. I feel like that could be you, because you're Australian as well. I think that would help.
Yeah, I think it's an easy in, isn't it? I've got a McLaren t-shirt and I've got an Australian accent. So.
And you're not getting it from Daniel Ricciardo.
I'm not getting it from Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, I am a little bit, but not as much. I think there's more P potential in the OP.
P11's not doing it for you, mate.
But no, you can't get wound up about a P11. Although, to be fair, I don't know how much time you spend in the F1 Twitter space. But the Danny Rick F1 Twitter space over the last 5 days has eaten itself from the inside out, which is that's a whole summer break episode on its own.
I did wonder whether X is just an abbreviation for the word misinformation as well.
Yeah, it's close. It kind of boils down. I think it's miss on one side and then information comes down the other side of the X. My last thing, which is a very boring thing to finish on, actually, I've got 2 bits of TV broadcast trivia and thoughts.
Hit me.
How do you feel about Gyrocam? You a Gyrocam fan? That seems decisive. Don't like a Gyrocam?
No, pointless.
See, I like a Gyrocam.
Do you? Every time I see it, and because it's clearly there, isn't it, to add I don't really know what it's there for, to be honest, but it's clearly there to kind of replicate or try and give you the impression that you're in the wheel gun.
Yeah.
And I think it's
no, sorry, are you thinking the pit stop where they spin it?
Yeah, is that not a Gyrocam?
No, they've now got the stabilized the camera, the onboard camera that's on a gimbal, so it stays level.
Yeah.
So they use it at Zandvoort a lot. I think is where they first did it. So regardless of what the car does, the camera stays level. So what you end up with is
some kind of casing, is it? Because otherwise that would affect the aerodynamics of it.
It's just built into one of those designated camera spots.
Yeah, whatever. I don't care enough about that.
But the effect of what it looks
360
like
on the top of it, mate. And give us that kind of full...
They've got that on all the cars.
Yeah,
they've got that on all the cars, and this is a rant territory again. They've got 360-degree cameras on the nose cone of all of the cars, and we see 4 clips a year from it.
Yeah, but put one on put one on the head. You know what? Not on the head of the driver, not on the helmet, because that's unsafe. But on the actual because they have that kind of
Yeah, the T-cam. Yeah, that's where all the cameras are in. That's there specifically for the cameras.
But put a 360 camera in there, because then you can go
front.
And you can swing around and you can drive along and you can be you'd be like this, and then you'd be like, Lando. And you'd be driving along and Charles would be behind you and you'd be going wee, fuck off, yeah, monegasque. And that would be great.
But yeah, the Gyrocam.
Oh, sorry, yeah, back on that. Imagine being able to control the 360 camera from the comfort of your sofa.
So they do genuinely
maybe,
put out the 360
wow,
video from that nose camera that
Sky
you can
Plus,
pan
mate.
around and stuff.
Sky Plus. You have to use the directional arrows on your Sky remote to cheers Crofty.
But yeah, I've just seen some people criticise the gyro.
Sorry,
AB.
Yeah,
I don't understand the criticism. I think it's quite nice because it shows you how unlevel a lot of the tracks are, and they showed it going up Eau Rouge in this one, and you don't realise how much left and right and undulation and stuff there is, and it's the only camera that gives it. But if you don't know what the camera is, then fine. I agree with you on the pit stop spinny thing. I mean, it's fine as a gimmick, isn't it? But it catches you off guard a little bit.
I think people just aren't very happy if they're not moaning about something, you know?
True. This is true. On the topic of moaning, actually, an anti-moan from me is my last thing on TV direction. Oh, my word. We are in 2024. We are flying little helicopters on Mars from Earth. That's a thing that we're doing as a human race. And yet, the pinnacle of science occurred during the Belgian Grand Prix when the TV director realised that you can show picture in picture and you can be showing one thing in the corner while something else happens on the main screen. And oh my days, what a difference it makes when I can be watching a replay while just keeping an eye on what's going on live in the top corner. Well done, the television people. It's taken you long enough, but we got there.
You'd have hated Formula One when it was on ITV.
Probably.
Because were you in England when ITV was a thing, when Formula One was there?
I mean, ITV's a thing now, but I couldn't tell you about their scheduling.
Anyway, back in the good old days before Drive to Survive, when ITV had the broadcast rights for Formula One, and there was a big controversy as to who was going to leave BBC and who was going to go. Is that the end of Murray Walker? Is it not going to be the end of all that other good stuff? When you were watching a live broadcast of the Formula One on ITV, you used to get these little kind of like a tiny little like black and white box in the top right hand corner of your TV screen that like kind of cycled through as like a loading thing. Okay. And you'd go, oh shit, an ad break's coming now. And they just cut away from the Formula One for a couple of minutes to play a couple of adverts in the middle of the race. And then they come back and you go, oh, right. Oh, 3 people are in the wall. Two have had pit stops and we've had 3 changes of the lead. And you get all that summarised by Murray Walker or Martin Brundle in the space of about 30 seconds because they've then got to get back to talking about what's going on. Great.
Doesn't sound great, to be honest. I think the Americans now on ESPN and stuff still have to have ad breaks in races.
Yeah,
or maybe
they do. But they need to be sold potato chips, don't they? And stuff like that.
This is true. Right, that was Spa, everyone. Yay, Spa. Well done, Spa. Snaps to Spa is what I would say. There's been some movements. Some of the cards in that house are beginning to fall. Some for better, some for worse. We'll start with the big one. It's the one that, I mean, we've all kind of been hanging on for a while. Carlos is going to Williams. Dan, your immediate thought was?
Still in shock that there was never a rumour about him going to Mercedes.
Yeah.
That still baffles the crap out of me, that. But I think it's great. Well, I don't know whether it's great for Carlos or not. But it's really good for Williams. And I think it's a huge statement for Williams as well. To have a team that's been kind of running around at the back of the grid for ever since, well, not since I can remember, because I do remember them winning World Drivers titles and World Constructors titles, but massive struggle since
the DTS era.
Was it 1997 that Williams last won a World Drivers title?
No, I think it was 96.
No, Jacques Villeneuve won in 97.
I haven't got a clue.
Well, no, it's a good guess, though. Damon Hill won in 96. Jacques Villeneuve won in 97. And I think then it was kind of Schumacher, Hakkinen all the way through. And I don't think Williams have come close since. And it's just obviously been a steady decline all the way down to the point where obviously they got to the thing and oh Christ, I can't even remember what her name is. The daughter of Frank Williams.
Claire
Williams sold up.
She was on Drive to Survive.
Yeah, good. I quite like her, actually. I just can't remember her name. Yeah. But that has nothing to do with that. But anyway, sold up and then kind of took that step forward. But I think to be able to attract somebody of Carlos's stature, I think is a huge statement. The one thing I would caveat that with, though, we talk about Carlos Sainz being one of the best drivers on the grid, the Formula One grid, and there were all these different people that were interested in Carlos. And is he going to be the ambassador for Audi going forward? And could he go to Red Bull? Could he go back to Red Bull family? Could he stay at Ferrari? Would he go to Mercedes? He's won 3 Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Like, he's not decorated. He's not.
But he's also never had a Grand Prix winning car available.
But he ain't going to get that at Williams, is he?
No, but it's not looking back, I'm not going to judge his number of Grand Prix victories as my metric of whether he's one of the best drivers on the grid, because I dare say if he had been in a Merc or a Red Bull over the last 6 years consistently, he would have had more than 3. No, I agree. I think it's very good for Williams. I think it's good for the sport. I think Albon and Sainz, I'm going to throw a question at you here, right? Are we agreed that Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are currently the best driver pairing on the grid as a pairing?
No.
You're going to tell me George and Hamilton?
I think as drivers, yes. I think if you include the thing with 4 wheels and an engine in it, then yes, Lando.
No,
Oscar,
I'm talking driver lineup.
No.
Right, so you're putting the Mercedes drivers first.
Yes, I would say so. I think
we can agree on a first and second order. I think
I'd be inclined potentially to have a conversation of, like, if we're talking like long term, I'd be inclined to kind of say that Max has got a big enough carry on Sergio, on Checo as well to kind of drag them.
No, we're not talking total points. We're talking strength of driver pairing in terms of taking 2 drivers and putting them together. For me, McLaren have got their number 1 and Mercedes got their number 2.
Fair enough.
I'm now going to throw it out there, getting a little bit hybrid.
Yeah.
That I think Williams in 2025 now have the 3rd strongest driver pairing on the grid.
I just don't think that'll be. I don't think that'll be accurate though.
But you're putting the car back into it.
But you have to put the car back into it, because otherwise, if they don't have a car, then we're just going to have a foot race.
Drivers.
But they'll still be running around Spa, mate. Now,
I'm talking the skill of the drivers they've got as a driver pairing. They have put together the 3rd best driver pairing in the sport.
It's so hard to turn around and say yes, because so much of it will come from the mechanical thing. They are both incredibly good. We don't know what the driver pairing of Leclerc and Carlos Sainz would look like at the moment if they were in that McLaren.
No, but I think as a pairing, I mean, maybe I have an ability to separate them from the car better, but a driver pairing of Verstappen and Perez is not a good driver. That's not a strong driver pairing at the minute. They've got a very strong driver and a very weak driver that cancels it out, because you have to go your weakest link in that, shuts that down real quick. And so if we're talking about, if you pull together a list of metrics for what makes a good driver,
yeah,
a little bit like the F1 games, like pace, racecraft, awareness, whatever.
Bit of top trumps type thing.
If you top trumps it, I think Williams have got the... well, actually now, if we're going to slide that conversation to 25, they've got the 2nd best driver pairing for me, because you put Antonelli in that, he's just unproven. He can't... George can't carry him into P2.
You do have Lewis and Leclerc in the red one, though.
There you go. So they're probably...
I think... Look, I don't disagree with you that I think the 2 boys in the McLaren are doing incredibly well right now. I don't know how confidently you'd be saying that if they were the team that were running around in 7th and 8th at the moment. Because and say the Ferrari was, then say the Ferrari car was performing the way that the McLaren car is right now, would you be saying the same thing about Leclerc and Sainz? I don't know. I don't know whether you would, because I don't know what's going on inside your noggin. But that's, I think, where I'm struggling to kind of separate it. I think they're both incredibly good. I think
Alex Albon is putting the shitbox at the minute in the points with semi-regular occasionality.
Yeah, which
is a lot of points for him as a driver, because we've proven that the car is not that. So that's why he's getting points from that. And Carlos Sainz is currently massively outdriving Charles Leclerc, which again, that's another fan base that I'm going to get attacked by hilarious. On the internet.
Speaking of podcasts that I saw whilst I was doom scrolling through internet sites, I did see a couple of podcasters talking about Ferrari, and the point was raised, did Ferrari get rid of the wrong person? Which I think I might have said a few weeks ago or months ago even. But Charles just a bit kind of, he's just a bit more sellable, isn't he? Than
100%.
Poor old Carlos.
Yeah. And it's cute, and it's, he's from Monaco, and that helps. And, it's just, he's got a dog, and, he looks good with his top off, and it's just, fuck off. But yeah, look, James Vowles is clearly cooking something. Because if you keep believing the chat as well that there's still a chance to have Newey go. Can you imagine, by the way, if we could take Newey to Williams with James Vowles there, and then we've got Carlos and Alex Albon, all of a sudden you've got the top boys going, oh Jesus, that's the Williams.
Do not get me wrong when I say this. There won't be many people happier than myself if Williams find themselves back towards the sharp end of a Formula One grid. Because ever since they decided to change away from Rothmans back in 1997, 98, I think, after the Villeneuve Championship. They sacked Damon Hill and he went off to Arrows, which I hated. And then they decided to paint their iconic white and blue car with a bit of blue and yellow, and they decided to paint it red because they were sponsored by Winfield at the time, who I think was another cigarettes company.
Yeah.
And from that point on, the whole thing just went to shit. There was a few kind of glimmers of hope when BMW got involved, and they had kind of Juan Pablo Montoya and Ralph Schumacher, who is now happily out as a gay man with a boyfriend. So congratulations to Ralph Schumacher. But it's been a hard graft being a Williams fan, to the point where actually, of recent years, you've just kind of gone, do you know what? I'd love to see them do well, but there's not even any point talking about them. Yeah. And all their gear was made by Umbro as well. Like, why the bloody hell would you want an Umbro top?
They're off Umbro now, thankfully.
Yeah, which would be good. And therefore, it would be worth looking on DH Gate for the fake ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Couple more moves and a non-move to wrap things up. We've learnt today that Jonathan Wheatley, sporting director at Red Bull, is the next high-profile exit from Red Bull, because he's going to go and head up the Audi project as TP there alongside Binotto, which I don't think was sorted actually the last time we did this pod, that Binotto's back.
No, it wasn't.
The Audi project, I'm starting to think perhaps that it's not that they didn't want Carlos. It's that I think Carlos maybe turned up for an interview, opened the door, the receptionist is chain smoking, and you can see a fucking arse out. And he's gone, nah, this is not the place for me. And he's turned around to walk out, and fucking stray dogs walked across in front of him or something. And he's decided this isn't for me. Because that project seems in shambles before we're even close to it starting. And they're inheriting a team that's also dog shit.
That was the thing I was about to say. Like, they are going to inherit a lot of stuff from a team that have square wheels right now. I don't know. I don't suspect it's fairly cheap, but I suspect it would be unlikely that Audi has just kind of built themselves a brand new purpose-built Formula One factory with wind tunnels and all this other good stuff. They obviously do have a very successful, or had a very successful motorsport division with various different classes of things, and obviously Le Mans being one of their biggest successes. But they will inherit a lot of stuff and probably a lot of people from whatever that team's called now.
Yeah. And I suppose they have the one slight advantage that they're coming in during a pack shuffle. That buys you some time, at least, that you're not turning up and trying to compete with teams that have got it, locked down for 4 years or whatever it's been. So, yeah, like and I wonder if that's also the other part of it, that I would, if I'm an F1 driver, I'd much rather be driving a Williams right now and in a Williams team than stake. And I don't know, maybe if Carlos could be bothered dealing with a year of stake to then take a punt on a new boy setup. Yeah. I can see it. And I also think Williams have got quite a bit of money now that Doralton is involved, and they've probably been able to pay Carlos quite handsomely.
I think, for what it's worth, I think when Audi get involved and when it's called Audi, I think they'll do very well.
Yeah.
Because Audi don't, in the history of what they've done in motorsport, Audi do not run around with the dregs of various different classes. So I think they'll do well. But they won't be able to run their 2026 car now. They'll still be kind of under embargo. They won't be allowed to do that kind of stuff. If they don't have access to all these different things, there's only going to be so much they're going to be able to do before they actually get that car on track. Whereas a lot of these other teams will be able to put drivers out. And I'm sure as well, if you did a test somewhere and you stuck a wing on it that you might use next year or so, or with a fractional part on there, I don't know whether anybody's going to notice. And Audi aren't going to have the ability to do that. So it's going to take them a little while to get going, but I think they'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah. And still on the topic of Red Bull, somehow Checo's staying. There's rumours about potentially why Checo Perez is managing to stay, which I think that's a decent place for us to finish, in that for the uninitiated that are maybe not as terminally online in the F1 world, there is a suggestion of a series of events that, what I will say, does kind of correlate to me, because you listen to the increasingly negative statements of Horner and Marco in the build-up to Spa. The boot was going in consistently, saying he needs to do better and needs to do better. He doesn't do better. If anything, he keeps getting worse. He was nearly out in Q1 by like he's safe by like 0.003 of a second or something to Alex Albon in the Williams. Why is that a consideration? So he's at risk there. Ends up, fair enough, qualifying in a half decent position, and then proceeds to drive backwards down Eau Rouge for 45 laps or something, and looks like he's, got a dud car. And to be fair, he came on the radio quite early trying to blame the car for the fact that he's shit. But then the rumour, if you believe it, the rumour was that as they were leaving Spa, the Verstappen family and Max were told, Checo's done ski. You will have a new partner for after the summer break. Didn't specify if it would be Danny or Liam Lawson or whoever, but he just said Checo's done. And then they had a meeting the next day, and I assume that meeting was, let's write the letter to Checo that says he's done. And then, there's somebody at the door, Dan. Who's that? Oh, it's Carlos Slim, who has more money than anyone else in the world ever, potentially. He says we have to keep Checo because he puts a lot of money into Formula One. I'm getting a phone call. The phone call's from Liberty Media. They've said that Carlos Slim's also called them because he invests a lot in F1 TV. And they're saying that we should keep Checo. Right then. Well, we best keep Checo. And then here we are. And if that is actually how it transpired, it's rumours, but it's rumours that we're starting to hear from different sources and different bits are starting to come together into a puzzle. That's alarming in a number of ways.
That's I think probably the word that should be used for it, and I don't necessarily think it's a word that should be used particularly lightly, but I think it's another word that begins with C, and I think it would be along the lines of corruption. That would be close, I think, to being kind of where that would be. I'd be interested to know where Carlos Slim does he invest in Checo? Does he invest therefore in Red Bull indirectly through Checo? Which, if he does, then I suppose there is a bit of weight to that kind of argument.
I think there's an element of that, and I think he is also very heavily involved in a lot of those headline sponsors that are there because Sergio's there.
Yeah.
So I think there is certainly a Red Bull budget cap financial element to it, which is where everyone was going initially, of that Sergio's essentially a pay driver at the minute.
Yeah. So maybe it was more of a case of going to you, lads, if you do this, which you're entitled to, you will need to go and find a car full of new sponsors next weekend, because there will not be a Telcel. There will not be a Mexibank. There will not be a whatever other companies that Checo brings across. So, yeah, maybe it wasn't quite so kind of, no, he's staying. It might have been a case of, it still was, but it possibly was kind of dressed up slightly. It just had a little bit of lipstick on it. It was a bit prettier than that.
I'm comfortable enough with the Carlos to Red Bull conversation, because that is an internal affair. You've got Lance Stroll, who's only there because his dad bought the team for him. You've got Logan Sargent, who's arguably only at Williams because of his Doralton American connections and the money that he brings. Pay drivers are not new. It is what it is. Nikita Mazepin was literally only there because he had all of Russia behind him.
Yeah.
So that side I'm fine with. That's their decision as technically a business of how we want to conduct ourselves. And as a pay driver, Sergio is not terrible. He would be doing adequately if he was blanketed as a pay driver.
Yeah.
If Liberty are ringing Christian Horner and going, no, thank you, we need Checo for viewership in South America. We need Carlos to be selling tickets to the Mexican Grand Prix, and we've got Carlos Slim having invested $100 million in F1 TV. We don't want to piss him off. Keep him, please. That's a concern, because then that is like when Ben Suleiman wanted the was it Saudi Grand Prix last year, where he went to the stewards as the head of the FIA and went, don't you take my boy Fernando off the podium. That's not a penalty.
Yeah.
That's not cool beans.
No.
Because that's then messing with it.
But not much would surprise me after Abu Dhabi. So
no.
Don't want to keep bringing it up. I am over it, but genuinely, not much would surprise me with that.
And
group.
you thought that Mercedes were in the wrong for letting George do a one-stop, and they should have had Lewis do a two-stop as well.
I don't think I ever said those words.
I think it might have been you on that podcast. So, but there you go. That's quite a bit has happened. We're in the summer break now. We've got 4 weeks off, and I found out the other day. Did you know that we have an unofficial autumn break as well? Because after Singapore, there's 4 weeks without a race. It's not a designated break. It's just the way the calendar falls that there's 4 weeks off after Singapore in October or something.
I didn't know that.
So we're going to have to find some more filler content down the line. But please listen next week. It won't be filler content. I think next week we're going to do a bit of a mid-season report card episode, aren't we? We're going to work out where we think everybody is and how they've performed through the first half of the year.
Yeah, I think you and I can kind of send a WhatsApp backwards and forwards before now and then and figure out how we're going to plan that out and who's going to say what on what thing and whether we're just... Whatever we're going to do, we can figure that out.
I would like to see if we correlate.
Air.
I would like to see if we correlate answers.
Yeah, okay.
If our 1 to 20s align.
That works. But what I will say, there's a really good opportunity now that if you are listening to this podcast and you've listened all the way through to the end, you can actually email us at lapdownpod@gmail.com with your thoughts with regards to drivers. You don't have to do all 20. You can just go, I think Esteban Ocon has been incredibly misunderstood this year, and I think actually he's probably one of the best drivers on the grid. You can send those words to us, and we will say it out loud for you. Or you can do the whole 20 if you want. You can give them a rating from A to F, I guess. Is that what you get on report cards? It feels like that. That's probably what you would get, isn't it? But yeah, get in contact with us because it's always nice to hear from the people that listen. I think we are up into the 20s per week, aren't we?
It's climbing. It's climbing on a regular basis, and it's the same people that are listening every week, and for that we love you. And what I will say is people do seem to be getting this far into the podcast, which, I mean, they ride it with us. They ride it with us. Our people that listen, they listen every week, and we say hello to you.
Get around them. But yeah, do that. Get in contact with us. Is social media starting again soon? I look at you because you've got carpets now, so I kind of feel
I don't have carpets yet.
Oh,
the carpets are on the way.
Alex.
I have bathroom flooring.
That's
the first step, and I have screed through the rest, and then maybe by next week's episode I'll have carpet. Maybe.
How
You'll
exciting.
tell the audio will change that I've got carpet because I'll be in a more sound-insulated room. People, I won't even need to say it. People will know.
I can't wait.
People will just...
I can't wait. Right.
No.
Go and find you on the internet. What are you doing on the internet this week?
Hey, look, it's Alex on Twitch. You can go and watch me play some games. Nice. And you're Dan.
Yeah, I'm just Dan. Dan Jads. Go and find me on there. And we'll just talk about cricket and stuff like that. So, look, it's been good. See you next week.
We'll see you next week. Goodbye.